I was 31 years old, had a job that paid above minimum wage, and I could not explain where my money went. Not to anyone else. Not to myself. I would get paid on a Friday, and by Tuesday, the account was hollow and I had nothing to show for it except the same sinking feeling in my stomach. Why am I always broke? That question. That exact question. It sat in the back of my throat for years. Years before I let myself say it out loud. I am not talking about being broke because you lost your job. I am not talking about the kind of broke that has a clear cause and a clear timeline. I am talking about the kind of broke that makes no sense on paper. The kind where the math should work, but it does not. The kind where you start to believe something must be wrong with you. Because everyone else seems to be figuring it out. Everyone else is saving, investing, building. And you are just surviving the same cycle every single month. If that is where you are, I need you to hear this clearly. The problem was never your math. It was your mirror. And I had to break mine before I could see it. Here was my first discovery. And it is so obvious that I almost did not include it in this script. But I am including it because it is the one thing nobody says directly. I was not managing my money. I was hiding from it. I had a bank app on my phone that I never opened unless I absolutely had to. I had notifications turned off, not by accident. By a very deliberate, very quiet decision I made every single time the app asked for permission. I would swipe away the balance on the ATM screen before the receipt printed. I built an entire system designed to keep me from knowing the truth about my own life, and I called that survival. I called it coping. I told myself I was being optimistic, focusing on what was coming instead of what was here. But here's what I now know that I did not know then. Avoidance is never neutral. It is expensive. Every day you do not look at the number does not freeze. It grows. Interest compounds on debt the same way it compounds on investments, except it works against you. In silence. While you're busy looking away, the cost of not knowing is never zero, and I paid it for years. Now I want to pause right here, because this is the part of the video where most people click away. They have heard the message, they got the insight. They think the rest is just elaboration. So I am going to ask you something now before we go further. Save this video, not for later today. For the night when you are alone with the math, and it is not adding up, and you need to remember that someone else sat in this exact chair. Share it with one person who is fighting the same fight in silence. And subscribe to AG Files. Because this is where people who are rebuilding come to remember they are not doing it alone. This channel exists for the version of you that is ready to stop looking away. Now, let me give you the second revelation, and this one hurt more than the first. The second thing I had to confront was harder to admit, because it was not about what I was avoiding. It was about what I was choosing. I lived my financial life on a promise I kept making to a future version of myself. The deal was simple. I will earn more later, so it is okay to spend now. I will be disciplined next month. I will get serious when the raise comes. I will fix it when things are different. And every single time I made that promise, I gave myself permission to stay exactly where I was. This is the enough lie. The belief that the problem is the size of the income and not the direction of the decisions. And I want to be very careful here because I am not saying income does not matter. It matters deeply. But here's the trap. If you cannot manage the money you have right now, more money will not save you. It will just make the same patterns more expensive. I know because I tested this theory, I got the raise. And 6 months later, I was in the exact same place. Except now there was more income to wonder about. More money that should have been enough, but somehow was not. The shift was not a budget spreadsheet. It was not a new app. It was a single decision I made after a Tuesday night that I still remember clearly. I sat down. Not with a plan. Not with hope. Not with optimism. Just with honesty. I opened every statement. I looked at every transaction. I did not judge. I did not make promises. I just looked. And I asked myself one question. What would change if I stopped believing the future version of me was coming to save the present? That night, I stopped negotiating with a version of myself that did not exist yet. I became the person who handles this now. Not later. Not when things are easier. Now. The recovery is not complete. It is just beginning. And that is exactly where the power is. Not in having arrived. In having decided to move, you are not alone. And you are not finished. If this is where you are right now, tonight, with the numbers not adding up and the shame sitting heavy in your chest, I need you to hear this. The question, why am I always broke, is not a life sentence. It is an invitation. It is the beginning of the answer, not the end of the story. If you are ready to rebuild, subscribe to AG Files. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight. And remember, nobody may clap for your comeback. Build it anyway.